You have no idea how good that felt. The pleasure should be illegal. My name is Total Biscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. Certainly won't be the last time, but the time draws to an end, and a new beginning, a new dawn breaks over the horizon. And it will be bright, and it shall burn your eyes. Oh, yes. Now, before I go on, I'd like to give a brief shout-out to one of my friends who runs a charity by the name of Get Well Gamers. That's get-well-gamers.org. And this is a charity that ensures a massive donation network which gives games consoles and games to various children's hospitals all over the country. And they indeed have operations in all 50 states now and are looking to expand to the UK. Now, these are great guys, absolutely fantastic. The work they do is unbelievably great, it really is. You should go check them out. If you've got a couple of dollars, send it their way. Get-well-gamers.org. And they are looking to see if someone knows anything about UK charity law because they want to set up here. So if you know anybody, or if you yourself know anything about UK charity law, then why not go over to that website and drop them a line via contact. Go check it out. You can send over your contact to there. They have a phone number. They've got email address. Let them know if you know anything about it, or your friends know anything about it. You know, maybe a lawyer. Go for it. It will be really helpful because it would be great to see those guys on our shores. Now, positive things. I have some, in fact, and it's related to raiding. How unlikely is that? So, I was reading on MMO Champion, as I always do. Best place to get news on the internet. They have a great blue tracker on there. Now, there's another blue tracker that I also use, and it's on Twitter. If you follow WoW Blue Tracker on Twitter, then you can get all of the latest blue updates. It's pretty neat. Admittedly, it's restricted to about 140 characters, so you've got a link there and a sort of half a quote, but it's really handy. Now, the blue tracker is very comprehensive on MMO Champion, and we've got a link for you here for a very interesting set of posts. And that's going to be posted in the IRC channel for you. Alternatively, if you head over to mmo-champion.com, then you can see the information there. It should be in the top news post. Now, there was a quote here. Very, very, very small quote from a player. Quote, subject line, Professor Putricide. Can we get an ETA on when this fight is supposed to be fixed, please? Interesting. Not a lot of information there. Now, you would assume, of course, that if someone says that, then the fight is completely and totally broken, bugged. You know, Cthulhu-level bugging here. We're talking about Veilstrad-level bugging. Completely balked in every possible respect. Apparently not. There are not one, not two, not three, but 4 posts from Mr. Valnoth, who is the lead world designer from Blizzard, and he's got some interesting things to say about this. And this fills me with hope. Somewhat. He says this. Just as a point of clarification, the Professor Putricide encounter is working as intended. You are only allowed 1 abomination up at any given time in both 10 and 25 player modes. Now, there is a bug which can cause spawning of multiple abominations. And he says that we are attempting to reproduce the spawning of multiple aboms. It's definitely not intended and will be hotfixed. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is really interesting. There's a quote here from a player that he responds to, and I'm going to read this quote for you. And it says, the mechanics may be working as intended, but what the players are trying to convey is the 25-man level of difficulty is too high for a normal mode fight. The data to support this is the current achievement rate of the guilds across the world. Taking just the US results, many of the top guilds have now had a chance to try out these encounters. At the time of writing, a significant number of guilds have completed the 10-man version, yet 0 have completed the 25. Now, some people have beaten it now. I believe, what was it, Paragon? Got the world first on that, so congratulations to them. And I believe a US guild has also killed it, and I imagine several more have. The name of that guild, if I can remember correctly, is Vanquish on US Blood Furnace, so congratulations to them. So, evidently it is killable. Now, going back to this guy's topic, it would not surprise me if a few of the elite guilds can get this encounter completed, but one of the other 99% of guilds, it appears to be out of reach in its current form on normal mode. Interesting, really, that people say, oh, the encounter's out of reach after it being out for, what, a couple of days? Bear in mind, this was posted on the 6th. Yeah? The 6th. That was the day it was released? A couple of days afterwards, maybe? And also bear in mind, of course, that it has limited tries. I believe it's 10. So, what you're suggesting, what this guy is suggesting from this post, is that the encounter is way, way, way too hard. Because not many guilds managed to clear it in their first 10 attempts. Now, the response of Valnoth is rather neat. He says, I get that, and I stated as much in the initial reply. Wing end bosses will all be extremely difficult and should feel like a step above everything else, even in non-heroic difficulty. They will, of course, reward appropriately for this rise in difficulty, granting tier 10 armor tokens for 25 and, unfortunately, only 10-player heroic only. But yeah, if you know what the tier 10 armor tokens actually are, they're the upgraded version of the tier 10. If anything, the 10-man version might be slightly overtuned. We'll be keeping a close eye on the fight and watching player feedback and stats. Now, someone also said, well, what about Saurfang? He's not difficult, because, of course, that's an end-of-wing boss. Quote, he's what we classify as a freebie. That's the highly technical design term. He's there so you can say, at least we got Saurfang. It works, trust me. And I suppose it does, really. I believe the misconception, funnily enough, this has been peddled by Blizzard quite a lot, so this is interesting to see them do a 180 on this. If this has supposedly been a long-held design idea, is that you don't need to see all the content. Not everybody needs to see all the content. They just need to get a good taste of it, and they'll be happy. They'll be satisfied. You don't have to clear the instance to have experienced the content, and to have gotten value out of the content. I haven't killed Algernon yet. In fact, the vast majority of the player base has not killed Algernon yet. Does that mean that Ulduar is worthless? No, not at all. Indeed, the vast majority of people haven't even killed Yogg 25. Surprisingly enough. They probably abandoned it because they went to TOC, which is much easier, and gave them better loot. Shame, really. We're working our way through to it, I can tell you that. We are going to kill Algernon, folks. We're going to kill it with the proper gear as well, get the Herald of the Titans achievement. That'll be interesting. Yeah, a challenge. A challenging character. That's what we're there for, not for gear. Anyway, this is really interesting. Wing end bosses are all supposed to be extremely difficult, and they are refusing point blank to nerf it. Now the question is, will they back that up? Will they give in when they see the numbers over the course of the weeks? Now, I'm sorry, but this is the way it used to be. Back in the day, when raiding was, quote, hard, yeah, it would take a while for people to get it down. And indeed, not all the elite guilds would manage it. And they didn't. They failed. Why? Because Putricide is hard, and you only get 10 attempts. Initially. You'll get more as time goes on. They slacken it up a little bit. That's their way of gating it. That's their way of slackening it up and allowing more and more players to have big cracks in it. You don't have to beat the content the first week. Wouldn't you, in fact, prefer that you didn't? Why do you want to beat the content the first week? Then you've got to wait at least 2 weeks for new stuff. Wouldn't it be awesome if you actually had content to work at? That's how it used to be. I remember going back to Cthulhu week after week after week. We've still got Cthulhu to do, folks. We're still working on Cthulhu. When has that happened? Not enough, I tell you. Not enough. Yogg-Saron got his ass kicked by the elite guilds. Algernon didn't. Admittedly, it was gated, but whatever. The idea is you're supposed to spread the content out. And you know what? This is a more effective way of doing it than drip feeding. I said last week that I think drip feeding is complete nonsense. This, on the other hand, this isn't drip feeding. This is ensuring that people have hurdles to get over, walls to climb, challenges to beat. That's the way it should be. Even if only 1 in 3 bosses is hard, I'm okay with that. Really. Because not every boss in an instance is hard. Look back. Look back, folks. Think about the, quote, hard instances. Think about Naxxramas. Original Naxxramas. That was hard, but what about Instructor Vesuvius? And what about Grand Widow Felina? And what about Anubra Khan? And what about Noth the Plaguebringer, folks? They weren't hard, not even by the standards of the day. Apparently, they're what Blizzard calls freebies. Not everything in an instance has to be hard for it to be satisfying. Think about Black Temple. First 3 bosses, freebies, jokes. Terran Gorfield wasn't that hard either. So, almost half the instance, not that difficult. What about Mount Hyjal? How many of those bosses were hard? Not all that many. First 2 bosses were pretty hilarious. Khazgaroth was a bit of a gear check. Asgalor, pretty tricky. Execution fight. And then, of course, Archimon, really hard. What about even small instances like TK? How many of those bosses were hard? 2 out of 4? Half the instance. Solarian, a joke. Void Reaver, a joke. What about SSC with a lurker below? And Tidecaller or whatever the hell his name is, Mogrim Tidewalker. He wasn't all that hard. Freebies, folks. You don't have to make the entire instance hard, you just have to make bits of it hard. Give people a break. Make them work a little bit on, say, Festigut, maybe Rotface as well. They don't have to be that hard. I'd expect them to be a step up from the airship battle. Because the trash is a step up from the airship battle. But they don't have to be rock solid. Not everything has to be rock solid. As long as the end tier stuff is, the end of wing stuff, that's good. I'm okay with that. And you know what I like? The fact that he went into detail. He engaged. Valnoth engaged the players and gave them the answers. Answers that are, in my opinion, irrefutable. Perfectly good answers. Answers that satisfy even me. And you know how cynical I am about these things. Now, this is not the only one this week. They're on a roll, in fact. There's another answer. This one also on MMO Champion. You can go read this. This is about the Rotface 10-man nerf. Now, this, initially, when I first read it, was like, oh god. And indeed, this random forum alt says Rotface nerfed. His health went down by 15% on 10-man mode about 10 minutes ago. GG nerfed. Now, of course, initially, you might think, oh, Blizzard, why are you nerfing content that's just come out? What are you doing? At least give people a chance to try it pre-nerf. However, Valnoth, again, coming out with the answer. This guy's rapidly becoming my favourite Blizz dev. And what an answer it is. The changes made to Rotface were an effort to fix a bug that fell through the cracks in development and testing. The previous iteration of Rotface in 10-player difficulty used, and still uses, the same timer as the 25-player difficulty version when dispersing its mutated infection ability. What this means is, plainly, is that a disproportionate number of people were being put out of the fight near the 30% mark in 10-player by a large percentage versus 25-player, making the entire fight much more difficult than intended. Obviously, if you severely outgeared the fight, none of this mattered to you. The HP change will have no effect on your 10-man clears. You will, in fact, still kill Rotface. The 25-player version of Rotface remains unchanged. Now, of course, I'm not in favour of nerfing 10-man modes, but that, to me, seems like perfectly reasonable justification for it. You know what I like? This gives a glimpse into the development process. This gives a glimpse into how they think, and indeed, how they make mistakes, and how they rectify them. That's good. I am happy to see them fully admit their mistakes. Like, here's the mistake, here's why it happened, here it is in purely logical terms. Even an idiot could understand that. Even if you don't understand what the mutated infection ability is, it says it takes people out of the fight around the 30% mark, and it takes too many people out in 10-man as opposed to 25, which is causing massive issues for people. That seems entirely reasonable. Their way of fixing it, nerf the HP. Okay, doesn't make his abilities any less dangerous. Doesn't mean you don't have to learn the fight, doesn't mean you get to face roll it. No, that makes perfect sense. I'm totally happy with that answer. Now, if only they would do that more. It makes me wonder, honestly. I do think about some of the nerfs in the past, and I wonder if they've had that kind of justification for them, and yet they simply haven't posted it. Or they've posted something which is PR. You know, near puffery, nothing more. Rhetoric. No justification, just a, blah 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 blah. Meaningless noise to try and pacify people, and it angers more people than it actually pacifies. Doesn't please anybody. This is the kind of answers I like to hear. This makes sense. This is Blizzard clearly laying out its development strategy. That's entirely reasonable. The nerf? I'm convinced. I don't know, maybe he's lying. I haven't tried the fight. I'm trying it tomorrow. I intend to kill it, along with everything else. Yes, indeed. But, to be honest, if he's lying, he's going to get cold on it. I don't think he is. I think he's telling the truth, and I think that logic is perfectly reasonable. And as such, I fully support the decision to nerf 10-man Rotface. On that basis. By that logic. By that reasoning. And by that honesty. It's great to see. Really is. My name is Total Biscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. I will be back right after this with the illusion of choice. Yes, indeed. This is Illuvite. This is Calling the Rain. Enjoy.